For 8 years, Olivia Harper lived in a world without sound. Her father, Vincent Harper, owned 17 hotels across 3 states. His name appeared on buildings from Phoenix to Seattle. But all that power, all that money, it couldn't buy his daughter a single whisper. The finest specialists in the world examined her. Audiologists from Boston, neurosurgeons from London, experimental researchers from Copenhagen. Vincent spent over $4 million searching for answers. 0 progress. Not one breakthrough. Then on a June afternoon in downtown Portland, an 8-year-old girl named Keisha Williams stopped walking. She had no medical degree, no training, no credentials. Just sharp eyes and a grandmother who taught her to notice things most people ignored. Keisha looked at Olivia's ear for less than 3 minutes. She reached out with small, gentle fingers, and she pulled out something that made everyone in that coffee shop freeze. Olivia Harper heard sound for the first time in her life. But what came out of her ear, that wasn't medical. Someone had put it there, deliberately, carefully. And when they discovered who did it, the truth tore that family apart from the inside. Before we go deeper into this case, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. The delivery room at Portland Memorial Hospital was chaos. Machines beeped in rapid succession. Nurses called out vitals. Dr. Ramsey moved between stations, her hands steady, her voice calm and commanding. But when the baby emerged, silence. No cry, no sound. Vincent Harper stood beside his wife Elena, watching the doctor cradle their newborn. The baby's eyes were open, wide and bright, staring at the fluorescent lights overhead. But her mouth stayed closed, still, unmoving. "Why isn't she crying?" Elena whispered, her voice hoarse from hours of labor. A nurse stepped closer, snapping her fingers twice near the baby's right ear. Nothing. She clapped her hands. Still nothing. The baby's gaze didn't shift, didn't react. Dr. Ramsey's expression tightened. "We need to run some tests." Vincent felt his chest constrict. He'd built hotels from the ground up, negotiated billion-dollar deals, stood in boardrooms facing hostile investors without flinching. But right now, watching his daughter lie silent in the doctor's arms, he couldn't stop his hands from shaking. They ran tests for 6 hours. Auditory brainstem response, otoacoustic emissions, MRI scans of the inner ear and auditory cortex. Every test, every angle, every possibility. Dr. Ramsey finally entered the waiting room where Vincent and Elena sat, her clipboard heavy in her hands. Her face said everything before she spoke. "Mr. and Mrs. Harper," she began, voice soft but firm. "Your daughter is healthy, strong heartbeat, perfect reflexes, but she's showing no auditory response." Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "What does that mean?" "She can't hear," Dr. Ramsey said gently. "Not at all?" The doctor shook her head. "We don't know why yet, but right now, no. She's profoundly deaf." The words didn't land all at once. They settled slowly, like ash after an explosion. Vincent sat motionless. His entire life, he'd solved problems, hired the right people, thrown money at obstacles until they disappeared. But this was different. That night he sat alone in the hospital room. Elena was asleep, exhausted, her face pale against the pillow. The baby, Olivia they'd named her, lay in a plastic bassinet beside the bed, wrapped in white blankets. Vincent leaned over and whispered her name. "Olivia." She didn't move. He said it louder. "Olivia, baby, can you hear me?" Nothing. He bent down, his lips inches from her tiny ear. "Please, please hear me." Her chest rose and fell in peaceful rhythm. Unaware, unreachable. Vincent sat back down, his head dropping into his hands. For the first time in 20 years, he felt powerless. Completely, devastatingly powerless. He pulled out his phone and started searching. Cochlear implants, gene therapy trials, experimental treatments in Germany. Anything. Everything. The screen blurred as tears filled his eyes. He wiped them away quickly, like someone might walk in and see. Then he looked back at his daughter. She was staring at the ceiling, eyes curious and calm, watching shadows move across the tiles. "I'll fix this," Vincent whispered. "I don't care what it takes. I'll fix this." The baby's hand curled into a tiny fist, and Vincent made a promise he didn't yet know was impossible. Not with money, not with power, not with anything he had. The only thing that could save Olivia was something he'd never see coming. A girl with no wealth, no connections, and a gift nobody could explain. But that was years away. For now, all Vincent had was silence. Public, Vincent Harper never cracked. Investors watched him close deals. Reporters saw him cut ribbons at hotel openings. Charity galas applauded his speeches. But at home, he was disintegrating. Every morning before work, he walked into Olivia's nursery. She'd be awake, staring at the mobile hanging above her crib. Dolphins and stars spinning slowly in the air. "Good morning, sweetheart," he'd say. She never turned her head. He'd clap his hands, snap his fingers, play lullabies from his phone right beside her ear. Nothing, not even a flicker of recognition. His assistant, Margaret, started noticing changes. Coffee cups left untouched on his desk. Meetings where he stared at nothing, not hearing a word. Phone calls he forgot to return. "Mr. Harper, are you okay?" she asked one Thursday afternoon. He looked up from his desk, eyes hollow. "I'm fine." He wasn't. At night, after Elena went to bed, Vincent locked himself in his office. Medical journals spread across his mahogany desk. Audiology charts, brain scans, research papers from universities he'd never heard of. He read everything. Then he started making calls. Specialists in Switzerland, researchers in Tokyo, surgeons in Boston. Always the same offer. Name your price. Double your salary. Triple it. Just tell me you can help my daughter. Every conversation ended the same way. "We'll do our best, Mr. Harper, but there are no guarantees." His hand shook every time he hung up. One night, Elena found him sitting on the floor of Olivia's nursery at 2:47 a.m., his back against the wall, just watching her sleep. "You need to rest," Elena said softly. "I can't." "She's healthy. She's happy." "She can't hear me," Vincent said, his voice cracking. "I tell her I love her every single day, and she has no idea." Elena knelt beside him, taking his hand. "She knows. She feels it." He wanted to believe that, but it didn't stop the ache growing in his chest. Vincent started avoiding friends, stopped attending dinners, canceled business trips. His business partners called, concerned. "You've missed 4 board meetings this month." "I'll be there next time." But he wasn't. One afternoon, stuck in traffic on I-5, Vincent sat staring at nothing. A car pulled up beside him. Through the window, he saw a toddler in a car seat laughing. The mother said something from the front, and the toddler giggled harder, clapping his hands. That kid could hear his mother's voice. Vincent's throat tightened. He pulled over to the shoulder, hands gripping the steering wheel. He sat there for 15 minutes, trying not to break. When he finally got home, Olivia was in the living room with the nanny, stacking wooden blocks. He sat down on the floor beside her. She looked up and smiled. That smile destroyed him. She didn't know. She had no idea what she was missing. And maybe that was worse. He reached out and touched her small hand. "I'm going to fix this," he whispered. "I swear." But deep, down, for the first time in his life, Vincent Harper didn't believe his own words. Vincent flew in specialists from everywhere: London, Tokyo, Copenhagen, Atlanta. The best otolaryngologists in the world arrived with leather briefcases and confident handshakes, ready to solve what others couldn't. One by one, they all failed. The first was Dr. Garrison from Johns Hopkins. He ran tests for 4 days straight: neural imaging, cochlear function assessments, genetic screening. On the 5th day, he sat down with Vincent and Elena in his temporary office at the hospital. "Her auditory nerves aren't responding," Dr. Garrison explained. "There's no visible damage. They simply don't transmit sound." Vincent leaned forward. "So fix them." The doctor hesitated. "Mr. Harper, it's not that simple." "Make it simple. I'll pay whatever it costs." "Money can't repair nerve function that doesn't exist." Vincent's jaw clenched. "Then find someone who can." The next specialist came from Germany, Dr. Kuhn, a pioneer in cochlear implant technology. She examined Olivia for 3 days, running every test twice. When she finally delivered her report, her accent was thick, but her message was clear. "Implants won't work," she said. "The neural pathways aren't developed. There's nothing for the device to connect to." Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "So there's no hope?" Dr. Kuhn's expression softened. "I didn't say that. But this isn't a mechanical problem we can fix with surgery." Vincent stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "Then what is it?" "I don't know." That answer wasn't good enough. It would never be good enough. A specialist from Singapore arrived next, then one from Switzerland, each one more expensive than the last. Each one with the same result: nothing. Vincent started keeping a journal. Notes on every test, every theory, every dead end. The pages filled with medical terminology he'd taught himself to understand: sensor and neural hearing loss, auditory neuropathy, genetic mutations, developmental anomalies. He memorized it all, and it meant nothing. One night, Elena found him in his office at 3 a.m., surrounded by research papers. "Vincent, this has to stop." "I'm close to something," he muttered, not looking up. "You've been saying that for 2 years. This one from Stockholm thinks it could be a rare genetic." "Vincent," Elena's voice was firm now, "look at me." He finally raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot. He'd lost weight. Gray streaks had appeared in his hair seemingly overnight. "She's happy," Elena said gently. "Olivia is happy. She doesn't know she's missing anything." "But I know," Vincent said, his voice breaking. "I know she'll never hear me say I love her. Never hear music. Never hear her own name." Elena crossed the room and took his hands. "She knows you love her. She sees it every day. It's not enough. It has to be." But Vincent couldn't accept that. Wouldn't. By Olivia's 3rd birthday. Vincent had consulted 27 specialists, spent over $3 million, traveled to 6 countries. The result was always the same: sympathy, theories, and no solutions. At the birthday party, Elena decorated the house with balloons and streamers. Olivia wore a pink dress and a paper crown. She smiled at everyone, completely unaware of the silence that surrounded her. Vincent watched her blow out the candles, or try to. Elena had to show her how. The other children sang, "Happy Birthday." Olivia just watched their mouths move, confused but smiling. After the party, Vincent stood in the driveway, watching the last guests leave. His best friend, Marcus Chen, lingered behind. "You okay?" Marcus asked. No. Marcus had known Vincent since college. He'd watched him build an empire from nothing, but he'd never seen him look this defeated. "You've done everything you can," Marcus said carefully. "Everything isn't enough. Maybe it's time to accept—" "Don't." Vincent's voice was sharp. "Don't say it." Marcus fell silent. Then, What are you going to do?" "I don't know." But that wasn't true. Vincent had one more idea, one last hope. A clinic in Prague that claimed breakthrough results with experimental neural regeneration therapy. The treatment was dangerous, unproven. Most medical boards refused to recognize it. Vincent didn't care. He booked flights for the following month. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far in this story below. I read every single one. The clinic in Prague was nothing like the pristine American hospitals Vincent was used to. The building was old with cracked tiles and flickering lights. But Dr. Novak, the lead researcher, had published papers that gave Vincent the first real hope he'd felt in years. "The procedure stimulates dormant neural pathways," Dr. Novak explained, his English heavily accented. "We've seen results in 15% of cases." 15%? Helena looked, stricken. "It's more than we've had," Vincent said. "It's also risky," Dr. Novak warned. "There can be complications, seizures, brain inflammation, in rare cases." "What's the alternative?" Vincent cut him off. "She stays deaf forever?" Dr. Novak nodded slowly. "That is the most likely outcome, yes." Vincent looked at Olivia, who was playing with a toy in the corner of the office, completely oblivious to the conversation deciding her fate. "Do it," Vincent said. "Vincent," Helena started. "I can't give up, Helena. I can't." Helena closed her eyes. After a long moment, she nodded. The procedure was scheduled for the following week. They prepared Olivia as best they could, though she didn't understand what was happening. Vincent held her hand in the pre-op room, watching the anesthesiologist prepare the IV. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart," he whispered, knowing she couldn't hear him. "I promise." The surgery lasted 6 hours. Vincent paced the waiting room the entire time. Marcus had flown in to support them. Helena sat motionless, her hands clasped in prayer. When Dr. Novak finally emerged, his surgical mask was still on. His eyes were tired. "The procedure went as planned," he said. "No complications during surgery." "Will it work?" Vincent asked. "We won't know for several weeks. The neural regeneration takes time." "But there's a chance?" Dr. Novak hesitated. "There's always a chance, Mr. Harper." They stayed in Prague for 3 weeks, waiting, monitoring, hoping. Every morning, Vincent would sit beside Olivia's hospital bed and test her hearing, clapping, snapping, speaking her name. Every morning, nothing. On the final day before their flight home, Dr. Novak ran one last round of tests. Vincent and Elena sat in his office, holding hands, barely breathing. Dr. Novak set down his clipboard. "I'm sorry. There's no change." The room seemed to tilt. "Nothing?" Elena whispered. "Nothing." Vincent stood up abruptly. "Run the tests again." "Mr. Harper, run them again. The results won't change." Vincent's hands were shaking. "You said there was a chance. And I'm truly sorry. But sometimes—" Vincent didn't let him finish. He walked out of the office, down the hallway, and into the bathroom. He locked the door, gripped the sink, and stared at his reflection. He looked like a stranger, older, broken, defeated. For the first time since Olivia was born, Vincent Harper allowed himself to cry. Really cry. The kind of crying that came from somewhere deep and unreachable. The kind that shook his entire body. When he finally stopped, he washed his face and walked back to Olivia's room. She was sitting up in bed, coloring in a book Elena had brought. When she saw Vincent, she smiled and held up her drawing, a house with a sun and flowers. Vincent sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her into a hug. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry." Olivia hugged him back, not understanding, but feeling his sadness. And in that moment, Vincent Harper realized something he'd been fighting for 3 years. Maybe love was enough. Maybe being there was enough. Maybe he didn't need to fix everything. Maybe. But deep down, he still didn't believe it. 5 years passed. Olivia learned to communicate through sign language. Elena became fluent. Vincent struggled, but tried. They hired tutors, speech therapists, occupational specialists. Olivia attended a school for deaf children in Portland, where she thrived. But Vincent never fully accepted it. Every birthday, every Christmas, every ordinary Tuesday, part of him still searched for the miracle he'd been chasing since the delivery room. Then they hired Grace Morrison. Grace came with impeccable references. 10 years of experience as a nanny for wealthy families. Background checks that came back spotless. A warm smile and a gentle demeanor that put everyone at ease. "She's perfect," Elena said after the interview. Vincent agreed. Grace started the following Monday. She was patient with Olivia, learning sign language within weeks. She played with her, read to her, took her to the park. Olivia adored her. But something Vincent and Elena never knew. Grace was drowning. Her mother had stage 4 cancer. The medical bills were crushing her. She'd taken out loans she couldn't repay. Credit cards maxed out, savings depleted. Every night she lay awake doing the math, knowing it didn't add up. She needed money, desperately. And she worked for a billionaire. One afternoon, Grace was cleaning Olivia's room when she found Vincent's office door slightly open. She glanced down the hallway. Empty. She stepped inside. The office was exactly what she'd imagined. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. On the desk sat Vincent's laptop, unlocked. Grace's heart pounded. She knew she shouldn't. But the desperation outweighed the guilt. She opened the laptop and navigated to his bank accounts. The numbers made her dizzy. Millions. Just sitting there. In one account alone. More money than she'd earned in 20 lifetimes. Her mother's face flashed in her mind. The hospital bed. The chemo. The fear in her eyes. Grace grabbed her phone and took photos of the account numbers, routing information, passwords saved in the browser. Then she heard footsteps. She closed the laptop quickly and hurried out of the office, her pulse racing. Vincent appeared at the top of the stairs. "Grace, you okay?" "Yes, sir, just finishing up upstairs." He nodded and continued to his office. Grace exhaled slowly, her hands shaking. That night, she sat in her apartment staring at the photos on her phone. She knew what she was about to do was wrong. Knew it could destroy her. But her mother was dying, and she was out of options. She transferred $20,000 from Vincent's account into her own. It was so easy. Too easy. He'd never notice. He had so much. But $20,000 wasn't enough. Her mother's medical bills totaled over $80,000. The debt collectors were relentless. So she took more. $30,000, then $40,000. Vincent still didn't notice. Grace told herself she'd pay it back. Someday. When her mother recovered. When she got a better job. She'd pay it all back. But the guilt ate at her. Then one morning, everything changed. Grace was getting Olivia dressed for school when she noticed the little girl wincing. Olivia kept tilting her head to the side, touching her right ear. "Does it hurt?" Grace signed. Olivia nodded. Grace assumed it was an ear infection. She told Elena, who scheduled a doctor's appointment for later that week. But Grace had an idea. A terrible, desperate idea. If Olivia's ear was already bothering her, maybe Grace could make it worse. Not permanently, just enough to justify more medical expenses, more tests, more bills that Vincent would pay without question. And in the chaos, she could take more money. Enough to finally clear her mother's debt. She felt sick, even thinking about it. But desperation makes people do unthinkable things. That afternoon, while Olivia napped, Grace went online. She researched ear infections, inflammation, anything that could create symptoms without causing permanent damage. Then she found something, a small specialized earplug designed for swimmers. If inserted deep enough into the ear canal, it could block sound completely and cause pressure buildup. Uncomfortable, but not dangerous. If she placed it carefully in Olivia's ear while she slept, it would explain why the girl seemed uncomfortable. It would justify more medical visits, more tests, more money she could skim while Vincent was distracted. Grace's hands trembled as she ordered the earplugs online. 2-day shipping. When the package arrived, Grace stared at it for an hour before opening it. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong. But her mother's voice echoed in her head from their last phone call. "I don't want to die in debt, Grace. Please." That night, after Olivia fell asleep, Grace crept into her room. The little girl looked so peaceful, her chest rising and falling gently. Grace felt tears sting her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." With trembling fingers, Grace carefully inserted the earplug deep into Olivia's right ear canal. The girl stirred slightly but didn't wake. Grace stepped back, her heart hammering. She told herself it was temporary. She'd remove it in a few weeks, no permanent harm. Just long enough to justify the expenses and take the money she needed. She left the room quickly, unable to look at Olivia's sleeping face. The next morning, Olivia woke up seeming more uncomfortable. She kept touching her right ear, her face scrunched in confusion. Elena noticed immediately. "Grace, call Dr. Patterson. Tell him it's urgent." The doctor examined Olivia that afternoon. He looked in her ear with an otoscope, but saw nothing unusual. "Just some inflammation," he said. "Probably an infection." He prescribed antibiotics and sent them home. But the antibiotics didn't help because there was no infection. Over the next few weeks, Olivia's discomfort continued. Elena took her to specialist after specialist. Each one found nothing conclusive. More tests, more scans, more appointments. Vincent threw money at the problem like he always did. And Grace, watching from the sidelines, took her opportunity. She transferred another $30,000, then 20 more. Her mother's medical bills were almost paid off. Just a little more, Grace told herself. Just a little more, and she'd stop. But weeks turned into months, and Grace still hadn't removed the earplug. She told herself she would. Tomorrow, next week, soon. But every time she thought about it, she panicked. What if they found it? What if they traced it back to her? What if they asked questions she couldn't answer? So she left it there, and Olivia suffered in silence. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. If you were in Vincent's position, knowing someone close was stealing from you and harming your child, what would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments. 8 years went by. Olivia grew up. She learned to navigate the world without sound. She was smart, creative, resilient. But she never stopped feeling the strange pressure in her right ear. It became normal to her, an uncomfortable normal. Grace watched her grow, guilt gnawing at her every single day. She'd paid off her mother's debt years ago. Her mother had even gone into remission. Grace had no excuse anymore, but she was terrified to remove the earplug now. Too much time had passed. The questions would be impossible to answer. So she stayed silent, and Olivia stayed in pain. Vincent noticed his daughter's discomfort over the years. He took her to dozens more doctors. No one could figure it out. They blamed nerve, damage, developmental issues, phantom pain. No one thought to look for something physical lodged deep in her ear canal. Why would they? The initial examinations had shown nothing, and after years of testing, they'd ruled out every physical cause. Grace kept her secret, kept working for the Harpers, kept smiling and signing and pretending everything was fine. until the day she couldn't anymore, until the day a stranger saw what she'd been hiding for 8 years. On a Tuesday afternoon in June, Olivia sat outside a coffee shop in downtown Portland with Grace, waiting for her mother to finish a meeting nearby. Olivia was 8 years old now. She wore a yellow sundress and white sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. To anyone passing by, she looked like any other kid enjoying ice cream on a warm day. But she kept touching her right ear, wincing slightly. Grace noticed. She always noticed. And every time, the guilt twisted deeper. Across the street, a little girl walked beside her mother. Her name was Keisha Williams. She was 8 years old, wore a faded purple t-shirt, and carried a backpack that had seen better days. Keisha's mother, Angela, worked 2 jobs, one as a hotel housekeeper, the other at a diner on weekends. They lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in East Portland. Money was always tight, but Angela made sure Keisha never went hungry, never missed school, and always knew she was loved. Keisha had a gift, though neither she nor her mother fully understood it yet. She noticed things, small details most people missed: a loose thread on a jacket, a crack in a sidewalk, a bird with an injured wing. Her grandmother, before she passed, used to say, "Baby, you got the eyes God gave to angels. You see people's hurt before they even know it themselves." Keisha didn't think it was special. It was just the way her brain worked. That afternoon, she and her mother were walking to the bus stop when Keisha suddenly stopped. "Mom, wait." Angela turned. "What's wrong?" Keisha was staring across the street at the coffee shop, at a girl in a yellow dress sitting at an outdoor table. "That girl," Keisha said. "Something's wrong with her ear." Angela followed her gaze. "How can you tell from here?" "The way she's touching it. And look, see how she keeps tilting her head? Like there's pressure." Angela sighed. "Baby, we can't help everybody. I just want to check." Before Angela could respond, Keisha was already crossing the street. Keisha approached the table slowly. Grace looked up, immediately protective. "Can I help you?" Grace asked, her voice polite but guarded. Keisha ignored her, focusing on Olivia. She signed, "Hi, I'm Keisha." Olivia's face lit up. Not many hearing kids knew sign language. She signed back, "I'm Olivia." "Your ear hurts?" Olivia nodded. "Always." "Can I look?" Olivia glanced at Grace, who hesitated. But something about this little girl seemed harmless. "It's okay," Grace said. Keisha stepped closer, gently tilting Olivia's head to examine her right ear. She squinted, leaning in. Angela arrived at the table, slightly out of breath. "I'm so sorry. It's fine," Grace said, though her heart was starting to race. Keisha pulled a small flashlight from her backpack, the kind her grandmother had given her years ago. "For seeing in dark places," she'd said. She shined it carefully into Olivia's ear canal. And she saw it. Something small, beige, lodged deep inside. "There's something in there," Keisha said quietly. Grace's blood turned to ice. "What?" "Something's blocking her ear. I can see it." Angela leaned in. "Honey, are you sure?" "Look." Keisha handed her mother the flashlight. Angela looked, and her eyes widened. "Oh, my God! There is something there." Grace felt the world tilt. "That's impossible. She's been to dozens of doctors. They would have seen—" "It's deep," Keisha said. "You'd miss it if you weren't looking right." Olivia signed. "What is it?" I can get it out," Keisha said. "Absolutely not," Grace said quickly. "We need to take her to a doctor." But Keisha was already reaching into her backpack. She pulled out a pair of tweezers, the precision kind Angela used for her eyebrows. "I use these to fix my toys," Keisha explained. "They're clean." "This is insane," Grace said, standing up. "You can't just—" But Olivia signed, "Let her try." Grace's hands were shaking now. If this girl pulled out what Grace thought she would, everything was over. Her job, her freedom, everything. "Please," Grace said, her voice cracking, "just wait for a doctor." Angela put a hand on Grace's shoulder. "If there's something hurting this baby and my daughter can help, why would we wait?" Grace had no answer. Keisha gently tilted Olivia's head again. "This might feel weird, okay? But it won't hurt." Olivia nodded. Keisha carefully inserted the tweezers into Olivia's ear canal. Grace watched, paralyzed. Angela held her breath. Seconds felt like hours. Then Keisha's hand moved, slowly, carefully, pulling, and out came a small beige object, an earplug, discolored from years of being lodged in place, but unmistakable. Everyone stared at it. Olivia's eyes went wide. Then her hand flew to her ear, and her mouth opened in shock. "I can hear," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, unpracticed, but it was there. "I can hear," she said again, louder this time. "I can hear my voice." Tears streamed down her face. Angela covered her mouth. "Oh, my God!" Grace collapsed into her chair, unable to speak. Keisha smiled, holding up the earplug. It was stuck really deep. Olivia stood up abruptly, looking around at the sounds she'd never heard before. Car engines, birds chirping, music from the coffee shop, voices. She started crying, deep, body-shaking sobs. Angela knelt down and pulled her into a hug, even though they were strangers. "It's okay, baby. It's okay." Keisha touched Olivia's shoulder. "You're going to be okay now." Olivia looked at her through tears and signed, "Thank you." Then she spoke it. "Thank you." Her first real words in 8 years. Grace sat frozen, staring at the earplug in Keisha's hand. Angela finally turned to her. "How long has that been in there?" Grace's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Ma'am," Angela pressed, her voice harder now. "How long?" "I don't know," Grace whispered. "You're her nanny, right? You never noticed?" I... Keisha was watching Grace carefully. Then she said very quietly, "You did this." Grace's head snapped up. "What?" "You put it there. I can see it in your face." Angela's expression darkened. "Is that true?" No, of course not." "Call her parents," Angela said firmly. "Right now." Grace's hand shook as she pulled out her phone. Elena answered on the second ring. "Grace? Is everything okay?" Grace's voice broke. "You need to come to the coffee shop on Morrison Street now." "What happened?" "Please, just come." She hung up. Olivia was still crying, overwhelmed by the sounds flooding her ears. Angela held her steady, whispering, calming words. Keisha stood beside them, still watching Grace. "Why did you do it?" Keisha asked. Grace looked at this 8-year-old girl who just destroyed her entire life with a pair of tweezers and a flashlight. "You wouldn't understand," Grace whispered. "Try me." But Grace just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. 15 minutes later, a black SUV screeched to a stop in front of the coffee shop. Vincent and Olivia Harper stepped out, their faces tight with panic. Elena ran to Olivia. "Baby, what's wrong?" Olivia turned to her mother and spoke. "Mom, I can hear you." Elena froze. Vincent's face went pale. "What?" Elena whispered. Olivia's voice trembled. "I can hear. Someone was blocking my ear. This girl," she pointed to Keisha. "She got it out." Elena looked at Keisha, then at Angela, then at Grace. Vincent's gaze landed on the earplug sitting on the table. "What is that?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. Angela picked it up and handed it to him. "It was in your daughter's ear. Deep. For a long time. By the looks of it." Vincent stared at it, then at Grace. Grace couldn't meet his eyes. "Grace," Vincent said slowly, "do you know how this got there?" Grace's entire body shook. She opened her mouth. closed it. Then finally, "I'm sorry." The words hung in the air. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "No, I didn't mean for it to last this long," Grace sobbed. My mother was sick. I needed money. I thought I'd just—" "You stole from us?" Vincent's voice was barely above a whisper. "Yes." "And you put this in my daughter's ear to cover it up? To justify expenses, more doctor visits, more tests, so I could—" Grace couldn't finish. She doubled over, crying. Elena's face was a mask of horror and rage. "You hurt my baby? For money?" Grace nodded, sobbing. Vincent pulled out his phone. "Who are you calling?" Elena asked. "The police." Grace didn't argue, didn't run. She just sat there, broken. Keisha tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Can we go?" Angela looked at Vincent. "Do you need us to stay?" Vincent looked at this little girl who'd saved his daughter. "What's your name?" "Keisha Williams." "Keisha," Vincent said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you for seeing what no one else could." Keisha nodded shyly. Vincent turned to Angela. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to," Angela said. "We were just in the right place." "No," Vincent said firmly. "You saved my daughter. Please, let me help you somehow." Angela started to decline, but Vincent was already pulling out his wallet. "At least let me cover your expenses today. Lunch, whatever you need." Angela hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." The police arrived 10 minutes later. They took Grace away in handcuffs. She didn't look back. Olivia watched her go, still touching her ear, still marveling at every sound. And Keisha stood beside her, a little girl with sharp eyes and a grandmother's wisdom, who just changed two families' lives forever. The Harper house had never been louder. Every sound Olivia heard for the first time was a revelation. The hum of the refrigerator, the click of a light switch, the creak of stairs under her feet. She walked through the house, touching everything, listening to it all with wonder. "This is what rain sounds like?" she asked Elena on the third day, standing by the window. Elena, tears in her eyes, nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. It's beautiful." Dr. Brennan, an audiologist specializing in hearing restoration, came to the house daily. He ran tests, monitored Olivia's adjustment, taught her how to process the overwhelming input. "Her hearing is perfect," he told Vincent and Elena. "There's no damage. The earplug prevented any harm to the canal or eardrum. She's just adjusting." Vincent sat with his head in his hands. 8 years! It was there for 8 years. "She's hearing now," Dr. Brennan said gently. "Focus on that." But Vincent couldn't let go of the rage. Someone he'd trusted, someone he'd paid, welcomed into his home, allowed near his daughter, had hurt Olivia for money. The police investigation revealed everything, the stolen funds totaling over $200,000. The medical records showing Grace had never mentioned seeing anything unusual in Olivia's ear. The timeline that proved deliberate deception. Grace confessed to everything. Her lawyer tried to argue desperation, her mother's illness, but the prosecutor was relentless. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was calculated, sustained abuse of a child for financial gain. She was sentenced to 7 years. But while the legal system dealt with Grace, something else was happening, something Vincent never expected. He couldn't stop thinking about Keisha Williams. This little girl had walked up to a stranger, seen a problem doctors had missed for nearly a decade, and fixed it in 2 minutes, with tweezers and a flashlight. Vincent wanted to thank her properly. He tracked down Angela's address through the police report and showed up at their apartment one Saturday morning. Angela answered the door in her housekeeper uniform, clearly about to leave for work. "Mr. Harper," she said, surprised. "Is everything okay? I need to talk to you, please." She let him in. The apartment was small but immaculate. Keisha sat at a tiny kitchen table doing homework. "Hi, Mr. Harper," Keisha said shyly. "Hi, Keisha." Vincent turned to Angela. "I know this is unexpected, but I want to help your family. Properly." Angela stiffened. "We don't need charity." "It's not charity. Your daughter gave mine something I couldn't buy with all the money in the world. Let me repay that." "She was just being kind." "Exactly," Vincent said. "And kindness like that deserves to be honored." He pulled out an envelope and set it on the table. "Inside is a check, enough to cover your rent for 2 years, pay off any debts, and give you breathing room." Angela stared at the envelope like it might explode. "I can't accept that." "You can, and there's more." Vincent looked at Keisha. "I want to pay for her education. Full scholarship to any private school in Portland. College fund, everything." Angela's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" "Because your daughter has a gift. And gifts like that shouldn't be wasted because of money." Keisha looked up from her homework. "I don't want to leave my school." Vincent smiled. "Then we'll make your school better. New books, new equipment, whatever they need." Angela covered her mouth. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." She did. Over the next few months, 2 families from completely different worlds became inseparable. Olivia and Keisha became best friends. Every weekend, Keisha would visit the Harper house. They'd play in the massive backyard, swim in the pool, watch movies. Olivia was learning to speak, her voice getting stronger every day, and Keisha helped her practice. "Say butterfly," Keisha encouraged. "Bah! Butter. Butterfly." Olivia laughed at the sound of her own voice. They were complete opposites. Olivia, the billionaire's daughter who'd grown up in silence. Keisha, the hotel housekeeper's daughter who'd grown up seeing what others missed. But they understood each other perfectly. Angela and Elena became close too. They'd have coffee while the girls played, talking about motherhood, fear, gratitude. "I owe you everything," Elena said one afternoon. "You don't owe me anything," Angela replied. Keisha just did what her grandmother taught her. See people's hurt and help if you can. "Still, thank you." Vincent, meanwhile, couldn't shake his guilt. He'd spent millions on specialists who found nothing. And a little girl, with no training, had solved it in minutes. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. What part of this story has hit you the hardest so far? Share your thoughts in the comments below. One evening, Marcus Chen came over for dinner. He'd been Vincent's best friend for 20 years, the only person Vincent truly trusted outside his family. Marcus watched Olivia laughing at the dinner table, hearing her own laughter for the first time. "She's thriving," Marcus said. Vincent nodded. "She is. And you?" Vincent set down his fork. "I'm angry." "At Grace?" "At myself." Vincent's voice was tight. "I missed it. For 8 years, I looked at my daughter every single day and missed what a stranger saw in 2 minutes. You couldn't have known." "I should have. I'm her father." Marcus leaned forward. "Vincent, you did everything you could. You flew in specialists. You spent millions. You never gave up." "I gave up on looking," Vincent said quietly. "I got so focused on the big answers, gene therapy, experimental surgeries, that I stopped looking at the simple things." "And Keisha?" Vincent smiled sadly. "She reminded me that sometimes the biggest answers come from the smallest places." 3 months after the incident, Vincent held a press conference. The media swarmed. The billionaire whose daughter had been deaf for 8 years was about to speak. Vincent stood at the podium, cameras flashing. 8 years ago, my daughter was born deaf. We searched the world for answers, spent millions, consulted the best doctors, and we found nothing." He paused. "But 3 months ago, an 8-year-old girl named Keisha Williams stopped on a sidewalk, looked at my daughter's ear, and saw what every expert missed. The room was silent. Because of Keisha, my daughter can hear. She's learning to speak. She's experiencing the world in a way we thought was impossible. Vincent's voice cracked. I'm standing here today to say two things. First, thank you to Keisha and her mother Angela, who raised a daughter with the kind of compassion this world desperately needs. He looked directly at the camera. And second, to anyone out there who thinks their voice doesn't matter, that their actions are too small to make a difference, you're wrong. Keisha had no medical degree, no wealth, no power, just a kind heart and sharp eyes, and she changed everything. He stepped back from the podium. The reporters erupted with questions, but Vincent ignored them. He'd said what he needed to say. That night, Keisha watched the press conference on TV with her mother. Everyone's talking about you, baby, Angela said. Keisha shrugged. I just helped. You did more than help. You changed that little girl's life. Keisha thought about Olivia, how she'd cried when she heard her first sound, how she'd hugged Keisha so tight. I'm glad I stopped, Keisha said quietly. Angela pulled her daughter close. Me too, baby. Me too. At the Harper house, Olivia sat in her bedroom, listening to music through headphones for the first time in her life. Elna knocked on the door frame. Olivia pulled off the headphones. It's bedtime, sweetheart. Olivia smiled. Can I keep listening? Just a little longer? Elena's heart swelled. 15 more minutes. Thank you, Mom. Elena paused at the door. Olivia? Yeah? What's the best sound you've heard so far? Olivia thought for a moment, then, your voice, and Dad's, when he says he loves me. Elena's eyes filled with tears. She crossed the room and pulled Olivia into a hug. I love you so much, Elena whispered. I love you too, Mom. And Olivia finally heard the words she'd been saying in sign language for 8 years. She heard them, and they were perfect. Grace Morrison sat in a county jail cell, staring at the concrete wall. 7 years. That's what the judge had given her. 7 years for stealing, for child abuse, for betraying the people who trusted her most. Her mother had recovered from cancer. The medical bills were paid, and Grace had destroyed her life for nothing. No, not for nothing. For money, for desperation, for choices she couldn't undo. Her lawyer had tried. Your mother was dying. You were in an impossible situation. The jury will understand. But they didn't, because the jury saw what Grace had done. Hurt a child. Kept her in pain for 8 years, for cash. No amount of desperation justified that. 6 months into her sentence, Grace received an unexpected visitor. Vincent Harper. She was brought to the visitation room in handcuffs, her orange jumpsuit hanging loose on her frame. She'd lost weight. The guilt had physically consumed her. Vincent sat on the other side of the plexiglass partition, his expression unreadable. Grace picked up the phone. I didn't think you'd come. Neither did I. They sat in silence for a long moment. How is she? Grace finally asked. Thriving. Vincent's voice was cold. She's learning to speak. Going to therapy. Making friends. Everything she should have been doing years ago. Grace's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. Are you? Yes. For what? Vincent leaned forward. For hurting my daughter. Or for getting caught. Grace flinched. I never wanted to hurt her. But you did. For 8 years. I know. Grace's voice broke. I know. I think about it every day. Good, Vincent said. You should. Grace wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Why are you here? Vincent exhaled slowly. Because I need to understand. How does someone do that? How do you look at a child every day and leave her in pain? I convinced myself it wasn't that bad, that it was temporary. that I'd fix it later. Grace's shoulders shook. And then later never came. You stole $200,000 from me. I don't care about the money, but you used my daughter to do it. I know. Do you? Vincent's hands clenched. Do you know what it's like to watch your child suffer and not? Know why? To fly across the world searching for answers while the person responsible stands right beside you, saying nothing. Grace sobbed openly now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give her back 8 years. I know. Vincent stood up. I came here to see if you felt anything, if there was any piece of you that understood what you did. I do. Then spend every day of those 7 years remembering her face, the pain you caused, and maybe, you'll come out of here a different person. He hung up the phone and walked away. Grace sat alone in the visitation room watching him leave, knowing she deserved every second of his anger. But Vincent's visit had an unexpected effect. That night, lying in her cell, Grace wrote a letter. Not to Vincent or Elena, to Olivia. She knew it probably wouldn't get delivered, knew it might be thrown away, but she wrote it anyway. Dear Olivia, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know something. Every day I worked for your family, I saw how much your parents loved you, how much they tried to help you. And I knew that what I was doing was wrong. But I was drowning. My mother was dying. The medical bills were crushing me. And I convinced myself that your family had so much they wouldn't miss what I took. I was wrong. Money isn't just numbers in an account. It's trust. It's safety. It's the belief that the people around you won't hurt you. I broke that trust. And I hurt you in ways I'll never be able to fix. I put that earplug in your ear thinking it would only be for a few weeks, just long enough to justify some extra medical expenses so I could skim money without anyone noticing. But weeks became months, and I got scared of being caught, scared of what would happen if I removed it and you suddenly could hear, scared of the questions. So I left it there, and I watched you live in pain. Every day. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I hope you're hearing beautiful things now. Music, laughter, your parents' voices telling you they love you. You deserve all of that and more. I'm sorry I stole 8 years from you. Grace. She mailed the letter the next morning, not knowing if it would ever reach Olivia. It did. Elna found it in the mail 3 weeks later. She read it twice, then brought it to Vincent. Should we show her? Elna asked. Vincent stared at the letter. I don't know. She has a right to know Grace is remorseful. Does she? Vincent's voice was hard. Grace is remorseful because she got caught, not because she realized what she was doing. Maybe. But Olivia should decide for herself. That night they gave Olivia the letter. She read it slowly, her lips moving as she sounded out the words, still getting used to connecting written language to sound. When she finished, she set it down on the kitchen table. What do you think? Elna asked gently. Olivia was quiet for a long time. Then, she was scared. Vincent frowned. That doesn't excuse what she did. I know. But I understand being scared. Elna touched her daughter's hand. You don't have to forgive her, sweetheart. I know, Olivia said. But Keisha's grandma used to say something. Keisha told me. She looked up at her parents. Hurt people. And forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means you stop letting them hurt you. Vincent's throat tightened. You're 8 years old. How are you this wise? Olivia smiled sadly. I had 8 years to think. The next day, Olivia did something that shocked everyone. She asked to visit Grace in jail. Absolutely not, Vincent said immediately. I want to talk to her. No. Dad, please. Elena looked at Vincent. They had a silent conversation, the kind only couples married for years can have. Finally, Vincent sighed. One visit, supervised. And if you feel uncomfortable at any point, we leave. Olivia nodded. The jail was loud. Olivia held her mother's hand tightly, overwhelmed by the echoing voices, the slamming doors, the sounds of a place built on punishment. They were led to a private visitation room. Vincent had pulled strings to avoid the plexiglass partition. Grace was brought in, her hands still cuffed. When she saw Olivia, she stopped walking. "You came," Grace whispered. Olivia nodded. The guard uncuffed Grace and left them alone, though he stayed visible through the window. Grace sat down slowly, unable to take her eyes off Olivia. "You can hear me right now." "Yes." "What's my voice sound like?" "Sad," Olivia said simply. Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Olivia, for everything." "I know. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Probably not." Olivia's voice was steady. "But I'm giving it anyway." Grace stared at her, stunned. "Why?" "Because Keisha taught me something. She sees people, really sees them. And when she looked at you that day, she didn't just see someone bad. She saw someone scared and hurting." Grace couldn't speak. "You did something terrible," Olivia continued. "You hurt me. You hurt my family. But you're also a person who was desperate and made bad choices. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." Olivia stood up. "I just wanted you to know that I'm okay. I can hear now. I'm happy. And I'm not going to spend my life angry at you." Grace broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Olivia walked to the door, then paused and looked back. "I hope you become a better person," she said quietly. "Because everyone deserves a second chance. Even you." She left. Grace sat alone in the visitation room, gutted by the grace of a child she'd spent 8 years hurting. Outside, Vincent wrapped Olivia in a hug. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know, but I wanted to." "Why?" Olivia pulled back and looked at her father, because holding on to anger felt heavier than letting it go. Vincent looked at his 8-year-old daughter, this child who'd suffered more than most people do in a lifetime, and realized she was teaching him something profound. Forgiveness wasn't about the person who hurt you. It was about freeing yourself from the weight of their choices. That night, the Harper family sat together in their living room. Olivia was curled up between her parents, listening to the crackle of the fireplace. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked. "Sounds," Olivia said. "How I used to think silence was empty, but it wasn't. It was full of things I couldn't hear." Vincent kissed the top of her head. "And now? Now I know what I was missing. But I also know what I had." She looked up at them. "I had you. Even when I couldn't hear you say it, I knew you loved me." Elena's eyes brimmed with tears. "Always, sweetheart. Always." They sat together in comfortable quiet, the fire crackling, the world outside settling into night. And for the first time in 8 years, their family felt whole. 1 year later, Keisha Williams stood on a stage at Portland City Hall, wearing a dress her mother had bought for the occasion. Vincent Harper stood beside her at the podium, addressing a room full of reporters, educators, and community leaders. "Today," Vincent said, his voice carrying through the hall, "we're launching the Keisha Williams Foundation for Young Advocates." Applause filled the room. This foundation will provide full scholarships to children who demonstrate exceptional observation skills, compassion, and the courage to act when others look away. He turned to Keisha. "Children like Keisha, who see what the rest of us miss." Keisha smiled shyly as cameras flashed. The foundation had been Vincent's idea, but Elena and Olivia had helped design it. They wanted to honor not just what Keisha had done, but who she was, a kid who noticed people's pain and chose to help. The first year alone, the foundation awarded 50 scholarships to children across Oregon. Kids from low-income families who showed promise in fields ranging from medicine to social work to education. But it wasn't just about money. Vincent hired mentors, created internship programs, and built partnerships with schools and hospitals. He wanted these kids to know their gifts mattered. Angela sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face, watching her daughter on stage. She'd quit both of her jobs. Vincent had hired her as the foundation's operations director. "No one understands what these kids need better than you," he'd said. Angela had argued at first, she always did. But Vincent was relentless when he believed in something. Now she managed a team of 15 people, overseeing programs that changed lives every day. After the press conference, Keisha and Olivia snuck away to the rooftop garden behind the building. "You okay?" Olivia asked. Keisha nodded. "Just a lot of attention. You deserve it. I just did what anyone should do." Olivia bumped her shoulder. "But you're the one who actually did it." They sat on a bench overlooking the city, watching the sunset over the Portland skyline. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Olivia asked. Keisha thought for a moment. "A doctor, maybe, or a teacher. Something where I can keep helping people." "You'll be amazing at whatever you do." "What about you?" Olivia smiled. "I want to work with kids who can't hear, teach them sign language, show them they're not broken." "Because you're not." "I know that now." They sat in comfortable silence, two girls who should have never met, but couldn't imagine life without each other. If you've made it this far in the story, I want to hear from you. What would you tell Olivia or Keisha if you could? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. 2 years after the coffee shop incident, Vincent did something he'd stopped doing years ago. He went to therapy. Dr. Sarah Lynn's office was nothing like the boardrooms and hospital suites Vincent was used to. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, plants in every corner. "What brings you here today?" Dr. Lynn asked during their first session. Vincent sat with his hands clasped, uncomfortable in the vulnerability. "I need to talk about control." "Control?" "For years, I believed I could fix anything with money or power. And when I couldn't fix my daughter, I felt like I'd failed." Dr. Lynn leaned forward. "And now? Now I realize I was so focused on the big solutions, I missed the small ones. A little girl saw in 2 minutes what I couldn't see in 8 years. That must have been difficult to accept." "It was. Still is." Vincent's voice cracked slightly. "I'm supposed to be the one who solves problems, who protects my family. But I couldn't protect Olivia from something happening right under my nose." "Vincent," Dr. Lynn said gently, "you did protect her. You never stopped trying. You exhausted every option available to you. But I trusted the wrong person. Grace betrayed that trust. That's not your failure. That's hers." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then, "How do I let go of the guilt?" "By forgiving yourself the same way Olivia forgave Grace." Over the next year, Vincent worked through his anger, his guilt, his need for control. He learned to accept that some things couldn't be fixed with money. Some problems required patience, observation, and human connection. The therapy changed him, softened him. Elena noticed it first. "You're lighter," she said one morning over coffee. "What do you mean?" "You don't carry the weight of everything anymore. You let people help." Vincent smiled. "I'm learning." Marcus Chen became a regular fixture in the Harper household. He'd always been Vincent's best friend, but after everything that happened, their bond deepened. Marcus had quit his corporate job and now worked for the foundation, managing community outreach programs. "You gave up a 6-figure salary to do this?" Vincent asked him once. Marcus shrugged. Money's great, but this actually matters. He and Keisha developed a special relationship. Marcus became a mentor to her, teaching her about business, community organizing, and how to use her voice to create change. "You've got something powerful, kid," Marcus told her one afternoon while they reviewed grant applications. "You see people. That's rare." "My grandma used to say that." "She was right." Keisha looked up from the stack of papers. "Do you think I can really make a difference?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "You already have. This foundation exists because of you. 50 kids have scholarships because of you. And Olivia can hear because of you. I'd say you're doing pretty well." Keisha smiled. On Olivia's 10th birthday, the entire Harper house was filled with people. Not just wealthy donors or business associates. Real people. Kids from the foundation. Families who'd been helped by the programs. Angela and Keisha, of course. Marcus, Dr. Brennan. Even some of Olivia's teachers from her deaf school who'd stayed in her life. Olivia stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by loved ones, and gave a speech. Her voice was strong now, clear, practiced. "2 years ago," she began, "I couldn't hear any of you. I lived in silence, and I thought that was just my life. I didn't know anything different." The room was completely quiet, everyone hanging on her words. But then Keisha stopped on a sidewalk. She saw something no one else saw, and she changed everything. Olivia's eyes found Keisha in the crowd. "She gave me sound, but more than that, she taught me to pay attention, to notice people who are hurting, to help when I can." Keisha's eyes were wet with tears. "So today, on my birthday, I want to say thank you to Keisha for seeing me, to my mom and dad for never giving up, to everyone here who's part of this family we've built." She paused, her voice thick with emotion. "And I want to make a promise. I'm going to use my voice, the one I almost never had, to help other people find theirs." The room erupted in applause. Vincent and Elna stood together, arms around each other, watching their daughter, this brilliant, compassionate, resilient girl, step into her future. After the party, after the guests had left, and the house was quiet again, Olivia found her father in his office. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always. Do you still feel guilty about not finding the earplug sooner?" Vincent considered the question carefully. "Sometimes, but I'm learning to forgive myself." "Good." Olivia climbed into his lap, something she still did even though she was getting too big for it. "Because you're a good dad, even when you can't fix everything." Vincent's eyes burned with tears. "Thank you, sweetheart." They sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the distant sound of traffic outside, the hum of the house settling, the rhythm of each other's breathing. Vincent thought about the journey they'd been on, the desperation, the specialists, the false hope, the betrayal, and finally, the miracle that came from an unexpected place. He'd learned something profound through all of it. You can't control everything. You can't fix every problem with money or power or sheer force of will. Sometimes the answer comes from a little girl with sharp eyes and a kind heart. Sometimes the miracle is in the noticing. 3 years after the coffee shop incident, Keisha Williams graduated at the top of her 8th grade class. She'd been accepted into Portland Preparatory Academy, one of the most prestigious high schools in the state, on a full scholarship. But more importantly, she'd started a club at her middle school called See Me, where students learned to notice and support classmates who were struggling. The club spread to 12 other schools across Oregon. Olivia was there for Keisha's graduation, sitting in the front row with Vincent and Elena. When Keisha crossed the stage to accept her diploma, Olivia stood and cheered louder than anyone. After the ceremony, the two families gathered for dinner at the Harper house. Angela and Elena were in the kitchen, laughing about something. Marcus was outside grilling burgers. Vincent was showing Keisha's younger cousin how to properly shake hands for business meetings. And Olivia and Keisha sat on the back porch, watching the sunset. "Remember when we met?" Keisha asked. "Every day," Olivia said. "You saved my life." "I just pulled something out of your ear." "You did more than that." Olivia turned to look at her friend. "You showed me that help can come from anywhere, that you don't need to be rich or powerful to change someone's world. You just need to care enough to stop and look." Keisha smiled. "My grandma would have liked you." "I wish I could have met her. She would have said you have a strong spirit. That's what she always said about people who survive hard things." They sat quietly for a moment, watching fireflies begin to glow in the garden. "What do you think we'll be doing in 10 years?" Olivia asked. "Hopefully still changing lives," Keisha said, "just on a bigger scale." "Deal." They shook hands, then laughed and hugged instead. Inside the house, Vincent watched them through the window. Elena came up beside him. "They're going to do amazing things," she said. "They already have." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "We're lucky." "We are." Vincent thought about luck, about fate, about the randomness of a little girl stopping on a sidewalk on a random Tuesday afternoon. If Keisha had walked past, if she hadn't noticed, if she'd been too shy to approach, Olivia might still be living in silence. But she didn't walk past. She stopped. She looked. She helped. And because of that, two families were forever changed. Night fell over Portland. The Harper house glowed with warmth and light and laughter. Inside, a family, built not by blood alone, but by love, gratitude, and a miracle no one saw coming, sat down to dinner together. Olivia bowed her head as her father said grace, hearing every word. Keisha smiled across the table at her best friend. And somewhere in a county jail, Grace Morrison received a letter from Olivia. Just a few lines. "I hope you're healing. I forgive you. I hope someday you forgive yourself too." Olivia Grace read it 3 times, then folded it carefully and kept it under her pillow. Forgiveness was a long road, but it was a road worth traveling. Years later, when people asked Vincent Harper what his greatest achievement was, he never mentioned his hotels or his wealth. He talked about his daughter, and a little girl named Keisha, and a moment on a sidewalk that changed everything. The biggest lessons, he'd say, often come from the smallest people. And he'd think about Keisha Williams, now Dr. Keisha Williams, pediatrician, who'd built a career around seeing what others missed. And Olivia Harper, now a sign language interpreter and advocate for deaf children, who turned her years of silence into a voice for others. 2 girls, 1 moment, infinite impact. Because sometimes the world doesn't need another billionaire with answers. It needs an 8-year-old with tweezers and a flashlight and the courage to care. If this story moved you, I need you to do 3 things. First, hit that subscribe button for Justice Tales. We share stories like this, real moments, real people, real change, because they matter, because you matter. Second, drop a comment below. Tell me what part of Olivia and Keisha's story stuck with you. Was it the forgiveness, the friendship, the moment everything changed? I read every single comment, and your thoughts help shape the stories we tell next. Third, share this video. Someone in your life needs to hear this. Someone's walking past people in pain right now, just like Keisha could have. Share this story and maybe, just maybe, they'll stop and look and help. We need more people like Keisha in this world. People who see, people who care, people who act. So tell me, will you be that person? Subscribe to Justice Tales, leave a comment, share this story, And let's build a community that refuses to walk past someone who needs help. Because that's how we change the world. One stopped moment at a time.